the illusion of inevitability. In the next segment, we transition from box offices to a deeper exposure because this is where the unprecedented narrative feels truly choreographed. We're dissecting branding, product rollouts, sponsorship optics, and the subtle mechanics of a machine attempting to siphon heat from the very phenomenon it refuses to acknowledge. Here, the saga shifts from athletics to psychological engineering. Fans don't merely watch highlights. They consume narratives. They observe marketing. They see who is framed as an inevitable icon and who is portrayed as a perpetual underdog. They notice what the WNBA celebrates loudly, what it whispers, and what it avoids naming entirely. The reason this Paige Bueckers discourse is incinerating timelines is that the sponsorship optics don't feel like organic celebration. They feel like calculated strategy. Let's be precise. Sponsorships aren't inherently malicious. Brand partnerships aren't moral failings. Female athletes deserve every cent, particularly in a sports economy that has historically devalued them. If you're a progressive spectator, you understand that supporting women's sports is economic justice. It is a declaration that talent demands reward. Period. But that's exactly why fans are sensitive to framing. There is a chasm between a brand organically hunting a star and a brand participating in a story the league is desperate to tell. When fans argue the Paige push feels artificial, they aren't denying her worth. They are identifying that these rollouts feel like manufactured cultural moments rather than reflections of reality. Here is what organic looks like in 2026. Organic is messy. Organic is corporations stumbling over themselves to catch a wave. Organic is diverse industries, apparel, tech, food, scrambling for association because demand has flooded out of the arena into the zeitgeist. Organic requires no heavy narration. It doesn't need instructions. It simply exists. So, when a partnership drops and the language feels inflated, signature, unprecedented, future face, fans run an immediate vibe check. This is where Bueckers' sponsorship optics become a lightning rod. The vibe check isn't landing. Consider the toy and family branding sector. On paper, it's brilliant, wholesome, and cross-generational. It's the category that builds household names. But in practice, fans ask a lethal question. Is this deal capturing existing demand or attempting to simulate it? There's a truth about mainstream consumerism that marketers grasp even when leagues pretend they don't. Casual buyers don't invest because you label someone a star. They invest because that star already occupies their imagination. The star is already mentioned at dinner. The star is the person their child mimics in the driveway. This is why, when Paige was positioned as a dominant off-court force in that space, the reaction fractured. One side cheered the mainstream visibility. The other asked, where is the evidence that Paige is driving mass behavior right now? Then the internet did its thing. It became forensic and loud. Fans analyzed visuals, brand palettes, and the overall urgency, the sense that the rollout was trying to plug Paige into a cultural circuit another player had already electrified. That's where the optics turned awkward. Even if brands had zero intent of borrowing momentum, perception is reality. In 2026, the public decodes marketing like a native language. People notice when a campaign echoes another athlete's aesthetic. They notice when timing feels like a rebuttal rather than a milestone. They notice when a player is presented as the answer to a question nobody has asked yet. Once that perception hardens, you cannot PR your way out. You can only prove it with genuine pull. The cold truth: brands aren't charities. If a deal is business, it must show business results. It must move product and move culture. When results aren't visible, fans suspect signaling, partnerships designed to communicate who the league wants centered and who it wants the audience to accept as the chosen face. There is something profoundly disrespectful about a system managing fandom like a classroom. It's the same disrespect immigrant communities feel when institutions celebrate diversity while curating which stories are safe to elevate. It's the feeling queer fans get when welcomed as a demographic but ignored as a cultural engine. It's the reality Black women athletes have endured forever. Praised in slogans, policed in practice. When fans see corporate choreography, headline first, proof later, they see a power move. They see an attempt to crown a star through repetition rather than resonance. Paige is being dragged into this storm not because she asked to be a narrative vehicle, but because the machine selected her, turning every partnership into a referendum and every logo into a battlefield. This isn't necessary. If Paige is that level of star, she can achieve it through undeniable gravity. Let her build it. Let the culture decide. Steering creates backlash, and backlash outpaces any sponsor headline. That backlash now targets the echo chamber, repeating unprecedented like a mantra. Next, we expose how that chamber works. How one talking point becomes a consensus used to shame fans asking for receipts. Once you see the pipeline, you'll never hear these headlines the same way again. It makes people feel insane. Scrolling through one unprecedented claim, hearing it again on a talk show, then reading it on an app. By the fifth time, it sounds like fact. That's talking point inflation. A claim is pumped until questioning it makes you a hater. Institutions wrap narratives in virtue so you won't challenge them. They speak of empowerment while deciding who gets empowered. Fans pushing back on the Bueckers hype machine recognize the choreography. It's a top-down message amplified through specific channels. The echo chamber isn't a villain. It's an incentive system. Writers need access, networks need arcs, and sponsors need clean heroes. Certainty gets clicks. A tweet becomes a segment becomes a clip, and suddenly you're told there is no debate. But the fan at home doesn't see what the headlines insist is happening. That disconnect breeds mistrust. WNBA Twitter splits into tribes. Comment sections become loyalty tests. It stops being fun and starts feeling like control. The echo chamber also decides who is problematic. When stars become too uncontrollable, the language shifts. The phenomenon becomes polarizing. Drawing crowds becomes unwanted attention. Competitiveness becomes arrogance. Progressive fans know this game. They've seen it happen to outspoken women, immigrants, black women, and queer people. When a transcendent star doesn't fit the script, the chamber reframes and drains empathy. This is why the Paige and Caitlyn narratives are colliding like a slow-motion crash. One is an official, protected campaign. The other is a massive, fan-owned reality. Fans are doing media literacy in real time, comparing headlines to box scores and promotion to ratings. Once the spell breaks, only one question remains. If this is real momentum, why does it need so much help? Real cultural pull doesn't need a chaperone. If Paige's impact were self-propelling, it would be impossible to contain. Instead, people feel orchestration. Orchestration isn't always evil. Sometimes it's just a league trying to be smart. But it becomes overreach when it tries to replace the audience's choice with institutional preference. The WNBA is a symbol built by women who fought for visibility. When the league manages the spotlight, it hits a nerve. Immigrant communities understand being welcomed on specific terms, allowed in the room but not allowed to move the furniture. Help needed implies the league doesn't trust the public to decide. It suggests you must be steered toward the safer option. The fight isn't Paige versus Caitlyn. It's control versus reality. Reality is rude. It doesn't care about sponsor decks. Reality is what happens when a player walks in and the building changes. Trying to redirect that creates a backlash marketing cannot fix. Progressive audiences are especially unforgiving because they've seen systems decide which power is acceptable. Fans are finally saying, "No, we can love the sport and reject propaganda." If Paige becomes a cultural force, she won't need protection. The numbers will do it. Trying to skip the arc and bully the audience into the ending before the middle happens is the only true failure. Once people ask, why so much help? They don't stop pulling threads. The most explosive reveal isn't a headline. It's how the machine accidentally exposes its own operation. Paige Bueckers is not the hoax. The spin is, if you want women athletes respected, you should want that distinction clear. Purity tests aren't fandom. They're conditioning. Paige is an elite talent who doesn't need to be a shield for messaging. Stardom is a relationship you build, not a title you receive. When people say this feels manufactured, they aren't calling Paige fake. They're saying the language is doing too much. Unprecedented is gasoline on a candle. It tries to skip the struggle and the public choosing you. Fans can handle nuance. We can say Paige is elite and still reject propaganda. The WNBA should be a model, diverse, global, and unapologetically excellent. But you don't get there by forcing a script. You get there by letting reality breathe. If Caitlyn is a gravity star, build around it. If Paige is the next wave, let it crest naturally. Elevate others without downplaying anyone. That is good business and good culture. People share authenticity, the rookie silencing a crowd, the veteran standing up, the player carrying her community. Let's retire the lazy framing. The fraud is the idea that you can declare impact into existence and shame fans for noticing the gap. The fraud is pretending a headline is a movement. Trust is the only currency that lasts. Right now, trust is being tested by a machine pushing certainty where honesty is required. The challenge isn't whether Paige can be a star. It's whether the WNBA can handle an era where fans analyze the messaging. Once the audience sees the spin, you only win them back by stopping the performance. This is the moment women's basketball dreamed of: packed arenas and cultural relevance. It's messy because it's alive. Narratives shape who gets paid and remembered. If you've ever had to earn your seat twice, you know you cannot manufacture belonging. Belonging is chosen. Fans want the league to respect an audience that is finally awake. The future is beautiful if the league honors it as a community rather than managing it as a brand. No matter your side, the WNBA doesn't need to select one face. It needs to stop pretending the public didn't already choose who is driving the biggest wave. It must stop using inflated language as a shortcut. Say Paige is a star. That's fair. Say she has major potential. That's true. Say she's positioned for big deals. Absolutely.